Pig Trail Nation's Mike Irwin with us on a Monday morning. Always appreciate your time, Mike. How you doing today?
Doing good. How are you guys?
We're good. It's exciting. No nervous moments yesterday. Arkansas, one of the last teams chosen. You knew they were getting in, right?
Yeah, I told somebody, we were all in the sports office, and I said, look, they'll be in the last bracket that's shown. That's just the way it goes. And they were, But, yeah, when you saw that bracket, you went, oh, my goodness, okay, yeah, they're going to play Kansas, and that's pretty much what it was. Not a bad bracket to get into. The team you've already played the team you're going to play in an exhibition game. Kansas was. You can't just rule them out. They had some decent wins, but they were up and down. I think if you look at the two teams statistically, they're very, very similar. So I don't know that you do anything come one way or another with that. I think the one thing you look at is just the difference in the quality of the competition the two teams have played. And, basically games leading up to this, who have you played? And I said this yesterday on our Pig Trail show. I don't know that I've ever been around an Arkansas team that's better prepared for what they're going to face because, honestly, almost every game they played over the last 2 months was like an NCAA tournament game. And they did really well. So that may be a difference, in Arkansas and Kansas, just the quality of who the teams have played. If they win and St. John's wins, then a lot of people are going, well, St. John's will have the home crowd advantage up there in Providence. But, St. John's that's an interesting team to look at. They tore up the Big East 18-2 and won the Big East tournament. The Big East just got 5 teams in. SEC had 14. Common opponents. St. John's lost to Georgia by a point. Arkansas beat Georgia by 3. St. John's lost to Baylor by 1. Razorbacks lost to Baylor by 3. So, again, that's very similar. So I think all in all it was about as good as you could expect. What Cal said was, and he told his players this before the bracket was announced, wherever we get sent, that's where we get sent. We'll go play because that's what we've done for the last 2 months. Just go play.
Mike, last year, UConn doing the three-peat or, winning and it just being the clear favorite. Who's the hottest team right now when you look in college? Is Florida the hottest team? Would that be your favorite?
Yes, I've liked Florida all year long, and they are really playing well right now. I think they've gotten overlooked a lot because they're in the same league with Auburn and Alabama early on, and Alabama's kind of faltered a little bit, and then you got Tennessee in there. But, yes, I really like Florida. If I had to pick a team to win it all, that would be the team I would pick.
This is this SEC versus the rest of the. This is how I feel about when it comes to the baseball tournament, because of how dominant SEC teams have been nationally, and I feel like the baseball season in the SEC gets all of these teams ready for the grind of the regional, the super regional, and Omaha. It really does feel like the same thing in basketball right now. This is the first time where I'd say basketball is up to that level of baseball. And when you play against the best in the country on a game-by-game basis, you're ready for it when you get into March. Especially when, I agree with you, especially when you feel like the pressure's been on Arkansas from the start. And we've seen some baseball teams in the SEC that have had pressure on them in, mid-April, late May to make a push to get into the tournament, and then they've ended up going to win the whole thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happens this year in the SEC. It's just that the top 4 in the SEC, it does feel like they're separated from the rest of the league.
Yeah, it does. But what's going to be interesting as this first and second round get played, this will be the first time now SEC teams in about 2.5 months have played somebody outside the league. So what's that going to be like? We would think they would do very well because they did very well before conference play started. But is it still that way? You can't say for sure until you see it. But that's certainly what I expect, and that's one of the reasons why I feel good about Arkansas. I just think they've just been under so much pressure, and they've responded very well. And so what's new? We just go do it again. And this, believe me, that you look at West Virginia, who got left out. And a lot of people were going, well, why is Cal talking about Boogie Fland? And I had somebody tell me, look, there may be more to that than just playing him. He may have sent a message because he specifically mentioned him, a couple of days before the selection show. And I thought, well, come on, is that some sort of a thing going back to the NCAA football playoffs, with Florida State, where he just wants to make sure? And I thought, nah, that doesn't apply to basketball. And then West Virginia gets left out, and everybody thought they were a 16 seed or a 10 seed, not just get in, but a 10 seed. And the explanation from the committee was their best player was out. Well, he's been out since December. So clearly that was a factor. So maybe Cal sort of knew what was going on and threw Boogie out there just as protection. I don't know. It certainly would have been a shock if Arkansas didn't get in.
Mike, what do you expect out of Boogie? 5 minutes a half. Is there like a point? Is there any type of restrictions? What would you expect? Going forward.
Well, Cal, to me, there are two issues, and the biggest one is not chemistry. The biggest one, you haven't played in over 2 months, and you're going to come back and the first game you play in is an NCAA tournament game. I mean, that is incredible pressure. He's going to get, 3, 4, 5 workouts at the most, and then he's got to do that. So there's that. And the answer to that, as far as Cal was concerned, what he said yesterday, hey, we'll put him in. If they're scoring points and playing well when he's in there, he'll stay in and play more. If he's not, then he won't play much. We'll put him on the bench. The other thought on that is that a lot of people believe, and we're going to have to wait and see, that he won't be running the point, that he actually is a better scorer when somebody sets him up, and a better scorer when, instead of driving in the lane himself and trying to score on a layup using his quickness, maybe somebody else does that and dishes it off to him. So we'll see if that makes a difference. He's still their leading scorer, guys. So, if he does that and he doesn't cause disruptions and turnovers or whatever, I think, you go back to an 8-man rotation, which can help you in foul, if you get toward the end of the game with foul trouble, fatigue, anything like that. And as far as the chemistry thing, all we can go on is what Cal said. He said the players would love having him back. They like the idea.
Well, he's the smartest player, Mike, I think, when you look back, if you go back 2.5 months ago and watching them play. So I do think being a smart player, being cerebral, being a point guard, I think that, having a high basketball IQ, I do think that helps kind of come back into the fold.
Well, he's still, last time I talked to anybody about the NBA, he was still a first-round pick, even with what's going on. Now, he'll have to work out, and they'll decide based on his injury. They'll be looking at his hand and see if that affected him. That's the other thing. We don't know for sure what that, how that thumb thing will work out. They just say he's okay. But, he was considered maybe a lottery pick at one point, and certainly a first-rounder. You don't want to play a guy like that? Well, I would say you would, unless he's, when he's in there and they're not scoring points. And I agree with you. He's smart. And this team, at times, I think they've gotten better, but at times they've been a very low IQ basketball team. We've seen them do some really head-scratching things. So maybe having him out on the floor would help that too.
And I think it's especially offensively, and that's where my main concern is for this game and any other game that Arkansas plays in March Madness. Kansas has held 17 teams below 70 points. That's a good defensive team. And the Razorbacks, look, they have their moments offensively, but they also have lengthy stretches where it just doesn't look like they're running an offense. So, I know Kansas has the big guy, Dickinson. They got 3 guys who can shoot from the outside. Dickinson's still one of the best players in the country. But I'd be more worried about how they can slow Arkansas down defensively. Because if South Carolina can do that to you, anybody can.
Sure. I mean, I think they're holding teams like 65 points a game. And that's pretty good. So I agree with you on that. There's just a lot of things that go into this, and I just think that the bottom line is you start looking at stats and all that. The only thing I look at is what Arkansas has faced week in and week out, every game by game by game. I've seen them in games where I thought they were shooting poorly, and I thought there's no way they can win this game, and they just found a way to win. So it kind of gives you confidence that they're going to win this game, and they might have a shot, to reach the Sweet 16.
Is there a team in the SEC that you would feel comfortable comparing Kansas to, like a style that you've watched so far? Is Auburn a little bit like them?
Yeah, not as good, but similar. There are a lot of teams in the SEC that play really good defense. Mississippi State does. Vanderbilt does. And Arkansas beat both of those teams. There's a lot of fans grumbling because those two teams are higher seeded than Arkansas, and Arkansas beat them both. But, yeah, there's some teams that play really – even some teams that, are not necessarily Auburn or not necessarily Tennessee and not necessarily Florida that still play really good, tough defense. And I would compare Kansas maybe to some of them defensively, maybe not offensively.
Well, I'm just impressed that they're in the tournament after an 0-5 start. I think it says a lot about Cal's ability to guide a group of what for a little bit looked like disparate players and keep them as steady as he possibly can, stay upbeat, because it's very easy to go down that vicious cycle where some of I honestly didn't think of Arkansas would win 2 or 3 SEC games after the Boogie injury and as lost as they looked before that. So, independent of what happens in this tournament, and I know that we always remember what happens in the tournament, for just the regular season in and of itself, it's not like it's been a great year, but I think Cal's done well this season. It's all going to matter what happens in these next few weeks, though.
Yeah, I just go back to yesterday where we're sitting here trying to watch the 9th inning of the Arkansas Ole Miss baseball game while at the same time looking at those brackets as they get revealed. And you're just going, what in the world? This is driving me nuts. And then it works out for baseball. And then I went on last night, and the U of A, somebody over there that I'm sure they've got people that do this. I don't know if you saw it, but they put together this little 20-second, 30-second clip with that NCAA music and showed them dancing and doing all this stuff. Man, it got me pumped up. Man, March Madness, and baseball. Go on the road and, win 2 or 3 in a difficult road situation. It was a good weekend to cover the Razorbacks.
Yeah, it was. One last thought on baseball then. Does look like a team that can swing it. You never quite know what to believe when you're watching in non-conference. But this last weekend, it's a good lineup. Might have to figure a little bit out of the bottom of the order, but I think it's a much better and more explosive offensive group than we saw last year.
Yeah, and I feel like the pitching will bounce back. I mean, some of those guys that struggled, you're watching on TV, and I've watched them all year long, and they just didn't have the location they normally have. I don't know if it was nerves, being on the road for the first time, being in the SEC for the first time. You got a couple of starters, that haven't pitched in SEC baseball games. They didn't locate the way, and then Gackle, he struggles in the first inning, and then he bounced back. I thought McIntyre pitched well, and so, you had some guys that pitched well. You look at your starting rotation in particular, and I got to believe those guys will bounce back. I've seen them all year long, and that what they were doing in that game didn't look normal to me.
I think you're right. I think if you're starting pitchers and you've got this rotation that's supposed to be really good, and I think they are. They gave up 13 runs in a little over 9 innings, but you still won the last 2. Hey, you got to feel pretty good about that. Really
much
good
better than last year when if you give up that many runs, you're dead in the water.
Pretty much.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.